Hi everyone, it's Kiran from Proteus Astrology, and this is part 2 of All About Eros. So in this video I want to take you on a trip around the zodiac with our friend Eros to see what he's up to in each sign. So for all the mythology and background, that was all in part 1, and part 3 will be about the planets conjunct Eros in the lives of performers and artists. Before we get to how Eros is in your sign, there are a few things to say, so just bear with me on that. We can start by looking at the discovery of Eros' chart for any clues as to why he appeared in 1898 in Berlin, I think. So it seems to be an airy Eros with most planets in air signs here. This, I think, is a talkative Eros, perhaps predicting all the online dating sites and texting we use nowadays to find partners. Eros is at 22 degrees of Aquarius, which is opposite the Sun, so I think there's some shadow work to do there. Not necessarily so easy, but look at that beautiful Venus conjunct Jupiter in Libra. That's perfect for expanding the heartstrings and bringing luck into the equation, and maybe some generosity and equality in relationships. Mars conjunct Pluto in Gemini, I think, further delves into the idea of love, whether just talking about it isn't as exciting as doing it, and that could bring some fated moments. Uranus and Chiron conjunct will also bring about some Plutonic lessons of love, I think, perhaps in surprising ways. Never less than exciting, even if they're also painful. Asteroid Psyche herself is in Scorpio too, so that's love with deep intensity and personal change. The whole point about Discovery Chart, I think, is to give us a flavor of what to expect, what Eros is pointing to in the modern era, and the timing of its discoveries is in itself a message coming at the end of that decade. That's pointing to an archetype coming into more prominence for our own evolution, or just to consider it, to shine a light on it. It's one that we can explore but not ignore, I think. Most of us do want to know about Eros, I think. We are very curious about other people's lovemaking styles, and maybe not so aware of our own. So if you know already a lot about your own Eros style, that's a plus. But I'd say sometimes Eros can be complex and unconscious. The first place to look, of course, is the main planets, Venus, Mars, the Moon. And check your Eros placement then, just for additional information. It may not be connected to any other planet, so it may not speak to you personally at all, but if it does, then Eros can give a clue as to your secret turn on and your behavior about relationships and even in the bedroom. This applies even to the kind of kinks we have that we never discuss with anyone else because we barely notice them until someone says, what is that thing you do? The first, most obvious thing, I think, is the element. So look to which sign is which element. So fire, earth, air, and water. That gives you a lot of the basic characteristics of the Eros. Then you can look at the house if you have got the chart. That will give you more information. Eros might most obviously be associated with the 5th house, where love affairs can flourish, and the 7th of partnerships. But I think he's active in every house because passion can be applied in different areas of life. I don't think it's just limited to relationships. You can have passion for a project or a hobby as well. Then you can look at the conjunctions to the planets if there are any. So check part 3 for that. Just a word of warning as well, the way I'm talking about it is very direct and adult. I like to be straight talking, and I realize that that's sometimes very sensitive. So what I'm about to say about Eros in each sign shouldn't be taken too personally. Remember always that the natal chart has many, many factors, and the Eros placement is just one small element in a much grander and more complex equation. You need to look at your own chart very carefully, because Eros may or may not be important for you, but it's always worth looking at, even if just for fun. So yes, so the interpretation here is general to the sign and not specific. You need to consider maybe also the degree of Eros. So in the early degrees, he might be just in training, working things out, being experimental. So there's a rookie energy to that Eros. If it's in the middle, he might be more locked into habits, doesn't want to change, but also has a stability. And if it's in the last 10 degrees, the Eros may have matured somewhat and perhaps is a bit more skillful. But then you get to the 29th degree and Eros may need to absorb all the lessons accumulated of that sign. And that could be a little bit trickier. Could be extra difficult there. Not necessarily, but could be. So just be aware of that funky transition to the next sign. And then you can look at all the other things, the squares, oppositions, trines, sextiles, and so forth, or get a personalized report. The glyph of Eros is very obviously about Eros. It's a heart pierced across by an arrow, and the glyph of Psyche is similar to the Greek letter Psi. You can find your placement on astro.com or looking at the ephemerides. Also, you can find it on AstroSeek. So what else is there to know? The orbit of Eros is interesting. It's elliptical. So remember, it comes within the orbit of Mars. So some years he spends very close to the Sun, like this year. And other years he could be up to 5 signs away. So as of May 2022, the asteroid Eros is still very close to the Sun in Taurus, and tracks close to the Sun or nearby for most of the year. Asteroid Psyche, his true beloved, is in Virgo. But what I find interesting is that Eros catches up with Psyche for this beautiful soulmate fusion on November the 3rd this year, 2022. So mark that day in your calendar if it's significant for you. It happens at 25 degrees of Libra, again an air sign. So if you have any points or planets at that degree, you could expect to have a full mind, body, spirit intensification of love, perhaps, or just realization about the nature of love. Perhaps not necessarily meeting your soulmate, but maybe just understanding what soulmates are. Yes, that's close to an eclipse on the 8th, but if you keep the focus on love, it should be magical, I think. Okay, here we go around the zodiac, starting, of course, with Aries. So what is Eros in Aries? Aries is ruled by Mars, so that brings a fighting, maybe energized type of Eros. That would rarely take no for an answer. They can be the first to make any move in a crowded room or on a date. But that might also mean that they're the first to finish up, a bit like a hit and run, the first to leave the bedroom or get out of a relationship if it's not working out. They would probably take the lead without any difficult conversation, as that might be premature, as patience is not a strong point here. They might love to be touched affectionately more often than most. I think physical expressions of love. They love the rough and tumble of being physical and having fun, most definitely. They might also do a lot of gesticulating with their heads or come across with greater force than they realize. If there is any overemphasized warrior element in lovemaking, remember that it's really Venus that starts the war, and Mars is left to fight the battle on behalf of Venus. So I think passive behaviors might come across as aggressive, and vice versa. There might be a difficulty understanding, who's first. But at the highest level, since the sun is exalted in Aries, there's the finest of this Eros is in their chivalrous and gallant behavior. They could come across like a knight in shining armor, and their urges may be raw and ready, but they also know how to hold back with restraint. They could be honorable and high-minded, and their behavior can be impeccable in intimate matters, and even be wholly dedicated to others for the sake of the community. And with long-term partners, they want their relationships to channel the sexual energy into a social outlet. They could also channel the divine masculine, both men and women, as that energy appears regardless of whether you are male or female. The only warning would be that if the shadow side is prominent, there may be some immature behavior here, some petulance or childish tantrums, or even selfishness, which could cause problems in love and relationships. Things could go wrong quickly and fights could ensue. But they probably wouldn't hold a grudge about it. So Eros here likes the intense unions to burn up alchemically, but could have profound effects on personal growth. But also Aries is about the self, so possibly Eros here might point to more than usual indulgence in self-pleasuring activities. So Eros in Taurus, that's conjunct Venus, so that's a good sign already that we're in a good place here. Venus being Eros's mother. Eros here is sensual and direct, I think, to the point of being basic, though with a certain refinement of the senses, I think unique to this sign. They're not to be budged easily one way or the other, though, definitely. Once the love goal has been decided, their minds are set, and persuading them to deviate from that goal is a waste of time and energy. But this can be refreshing and simple, as they are not into game playing or trickery. They would come with a bit of honesty. At its worst, when out of control, this could come across as wanting to dominate, though, or insisting on their own way of doing things. Remember the word we mentioned, epistemia, is related to this sign, and that's just an earthy, lustful style, which is being horny. So no nonsense attached here. And that, for most people, is a good way to be in love, because it offers rich, sensual, physical experiences, which they love to repeat in the same way. So they like relationships and dating to be uncomplicated. But that does not mean it's without depth of feeling and intense loyalty. It's a fixed earth sign, so they're happy to stay in their field literally till the cows come home. They are most open to any moves made towards them via the senses, so that's through the whole gamut. That's opulent clothes, jewellery, makeup, lingerie, quality underwear, artworks, perfume, music, singing, massage, and of course money in the bank, which will make them feel more secure. They like physically being touched in sensitive places, perhaps like the ears, neck and throat, as that's associated with Taurus. But they don't like to vary their tastes, I think. They become entrenched. Most likely not into too many kinks or any weird stuff, as that might be a turn-off, though, it could be explored. I'm thinking here of love bites on the neck as well, as long as it doesn't look too vulgar. If there is a routine, then Eros and Taurus might get stuck in the mud here a little bit and would need a lot of coaxing to change track, so perhaps not as flexible as it could be. So Eros in Gemini, that's conjunct Mercury, because Mercury rules Gemini. I think is a fast one. It speeds ahead through words. I think they quite like setting up a date via texting on the phone as a starting point. And that could be highly exciting as foreplay to the act of lovemaking. But equally, it can lead to being dropped by text as well. So bear that in mind. This Eros, I think, needs to have a conversation first as a lead-in, as they may have lots of choices available, and talking about it would be just as exciting as doing it. They might therefore prefer to be sapiosexual, which means that they're turned on by conversation and intellect and knowledge in the partner. They may talk about the weather or about finance, but it's really a stand-in topic, which is really about love and sex underlying. Or they are genuinely turned on by ideas and not that interested in sex so much. But that would be a way just to avoid being bored. But they're definitely turned on by someone who can talk very well, or talk them into it, who may not be as physically attractive to others, but because of their knowledge can be persuasive. This Eros, I think, is dexterous in the art of lovemaking, though when they do get down to it, they do it with energy or with a technical facility. They know where to put their hands, arms, and legs at the appropriate moment, and to make their lovers enjoy the experience to the full. This Eros might also have a touch of heady logos. Remember this word we mentioned in part 1, which means they may choose to flatter and schmooze in order to seduce their lovers. Or they might wish to talk after sex and to ask, so how was it for you? When the other partner feels like rest and recuperation. Eros here might think that love can be solely aroused through words, and that's a danger, because that could lose the connection to the heart and may come across as lacking in sincerity. So it knows very well, though, that how talking can be as very erotic to some people, as any oral stimulation can be enjoyable. And they can be very persuasive, but the problem is that facility with words can make love more abstract than it needs to be, and could turn off any love interest who prefers more action and feeling. But this Eros, I think, can inspire the highest and most beautiful love poetry or love letters, song lyrics, especially where that facility is enhanced by a conjunction of Venus and Mercury. They may also have a boyish or girlish appeal that becomes useful finding partners and can last long into old age. But they become quickly bored and prefer to maybe have more than one partner. Not that they're too timing necessarily, it's just that the temptation is there to have numerous choices, and that there's a luxury in the choosing with this Eros. The worst is when there's no one around to play with at all. They have clever minds here that can cope easily with simultaneous love interests running parallel. Or it could mean that they prefer friendships to intense love affairs, because you can have a lot of friendships and they may never get bored with that. But when they do settle down, they can still be loyal. So Eros in Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the moon is warm and nourishing and spreads love easily with a natural, wholesome energy. I think this Eros loves the immediate impact that comes from beaming rays of love towards the loved one. It can be very psychic and may know what the lover is thinking before they do themselves. But the sex must be emotional and sensitive and full of blandishments of huddling together and getting deep into it, but they have to feel safe with the partner. So there will be a lot of choosiness in that process. Cuddling could be a big turn on, and showing feelings through tears even, or tantrums if those clear the air. Those with this Eros placement will love touch and beautiful objects and gifts, a little bit like Taurus, but it has to be on a feeling level, so that goes way beyond the physical, depending on the intention of the lover. But once they've tested the waters, and they love to show how much they really care, and so they will go out of their way to make their lovers feel comfortable, and they're ready to nurse anyone back to health with any kind of homemade remedies. They love to be around the family, so meeting lovers this way could be appealing to them, or even making love in a domestic area like a kitchen or a dining room. Having the most comfortable domestic space, I think, is their ideal. Then they flourish in that space. They might be inclined to use food to tempt lovers to have these feelings of togetherness through sharing food. That's one of the refinements that could become a kind of foreplay. Knowing which foods act as aphrodisiacs might be an interest here. They also might use collections of objects around the house to play and tease the partner. And as this comes naturally to this Eros. Massage of the stomach area might be arousing too. It can get very personal though if they feel slighted or thwarted. And they would definitely dodge any questions that are too intimate, as they would run back and hide in their shell or become too prickly. But once they've got hold of a lover though, they wouldn't let go for a long time. There's a feeling that at the worst it can become overly motherly, treating the lover as a child, and that may lead to a polarized role playing. There could be a neediness in clinging to the partner too, when it is wiser to be flexible and let go and not hold a grudge. The moon is about basic needs, and that is cemented early in life, so there could be some troubled emotions rising from love partners or excessive shows of affection that can turn to insecurity. And psychotherapy definitely may help here if the person is not fully matured. At its best though, it's a full and encompassing type of love to which their partners become quickly addicted, and might be difficult to match. So Eros in Leo, or conjunct the Sun, loves to be seen and admired as they are the king or the queen of the heart. So their demand for demonstrative love is very high, but very rewarding if you are on the receiving end. This Eros beams their love around like powerful rays of light direct from this spirit, and others around them feel it as a spotlight turned on them. They themselves can be turned on just by seeing that others are turned on by them, so because they are the flame that provides all the heat and the growth of emotion. And that's how relationships flourish. So there's wonderful, magical growth element here. They know that as the sun rules Leo, that it's the center of the universe. So they like to be the center of attention. They like to take the lead and be the hunter, not the hunted. But then sometimes they can sit around lazily and purr and bask in the admiration that comes their way. This doesn't necessarily mean vanity or narcissism, but it could lead to that in some cases. I think they would definitely be amorous lovers, quite skillful, who understand that love is about give and take, so they put their whole hearts into it. So the loved one's very lucky in this sense, as they receive the best of the best, because Eros in Leo radiates this warmth like the sun. On the other hand, that could be overwhelming, and the partner may need to run for cover now and again, as the light could be too bright and the intensity too burning. And another drawback of this placement is that they may indulge feelings and not keep their thinking caps on. So there could be some poor judgment and discernment about who is loyal and who is not. As they often give too much, they can suddenly then retract and fear that they've been taken advantage of. But they usually have enough light to shine on the next person who comes along. Leo here is associated with the idea of philia, so they're capable of being great platonic lovers too. They understand the value of passionate friendships where sex isn't even an issue, or it could be on and off. But these relationships can be almost as romantic as the real thing. So there could be a little bit of overlap here between true sexual romantic and friendship romantic. But and that can cause confusion, so that would be something that they might need to keep control of. Eros in Virgo, and that also means conjunct Mercury, and I think also here we have to mention Vesta and possibly Chiron. This is an energy driven by mental curiosity. They can be very practical and analytical, but still earthy, so very sexual too. So that might be a little bit difficult for lovers to figure out, because on the surface they might appear somewhat virginal, but they're not when they get in the bedroom. There's a hint here too that Eros meets Psyche, so it's where the mind is just as strong as the heart. So if that is integrated, it can bring a beautiful flavor of the highest union of thoughtful love. They do everything to please the lover and mirror their responses without a trace of selfishness. So that's all good. And at best, they can go all out to research all the particulars of what turns on their partners and be meticulous and methodical about it, putting all that into action. At worst, though, this can express itself as a worried attitude where they overemphasize techniques above a heart-centered approach. If they do take a sex by numbers attitude, as if they've read all the tricks out of the Kama Sutra, it can give a hint of slightly lacking in feeling. But nevertheless, they will have all the refined arts and all the skills of giving pleasure. They perceive, however, all the tiny little things that bother them, and they can be scrupulous about personal hygiene, and that could be turned off completely by any mismatch of colors or poorly organized date where the timing is wrong. Any whiff of sweat or dirt under the nails that gives them a sense of disgust or lack of perfection in the other can be real turn-offs. They like the bedroom area to be neat and tidy, and they might even be the type to have a shower before and after sex. So that's worth being aware of. This is because they seek perfection in themselves and project that onto others. So the difficulty here is accepting all the mishaps and the messiness of life. And unless the emotion is very strong, that too can be expressed easily, and they can be the best of lovers. But whatever the case is, the loved one is in for a treat when Eros is in Virgo. For them, sex is a healing art. This puts sex on the level of the sacred too, so it may be enhanced by all the techniques possible to the light worker, healer, who is associated with the Virgo archetype. So they would be familiar with nutrition, all types of diet, yoga, asanas, massage, deep body work, acupressure, energy medicine, qigong, awareness of meridian lines in the body that can make lovemaking almost spiritual or go beyond the physical in some way. Their aim is to be of service, so they can become precise in the delivery of that, making them experts in the bedroom. They can be very efficient lovers, careful, but very caring as well, and but easily put off. So that needs to find its balance for these relationships to be blessed. So Eros in the sign of balance, which is Libra, needs expressions of love to be measured up like an equation. They like to please, of course, so that's where the equality of giving and taking is brought to the fore. This could be similar to Eros conjunct Venus, but also it's worth looking at Juno here, as that asteroid has the provenance of partnerships, marriage, equality, even divorces. So Eros in Libra can let go and enjoy themselves as long as the interiors are of good quality and pleasing to the eye, and that the way that the lover dresses is appropriate and aesthetic. They themselves would come across as well dressed, attractive, charming, perhaps elegant, and very good in the art of conversation. This Eros, I think, needs to feel appreciated a lot. So, and if they're not, their innate sense of justice will turn them contrary, and they could begin to destabilize the relationship. They need to feel that the partner is taking their turn and being equal. And if that's not stated in words, they will have a nagging sense that something's wrong or it's not for them, and might be willing to just end it. So a turn on might be someone who can really talk or be charming in conversation, or an artist, and someone who's good in all the games of flirtation and seduction. They tend to like intellectual or artistic partners who have poise and elegance and know all about social etiquette. They would be very good at settling disputes. So as marriage guidance counselors, there could be a skill there, because they're reasonable and they know how to compromise and achieve equilibrium in long-term relationships. So this is very good for long-term partnerships, because there's a willingness to compromise. But they might have a tendency to be a people pleaser and then wonder why so many people are disagreeable with them. If that isn't recognized, it could be that they mirror the partner too much and create a monster out of the beautiful person that they have. They give a lot to any partner, but at the same time they might feel inclined to quibble over who does what, and there's always a need to balance things up. Like an account book somehow, that could lead rapidly to conflicts, so they need to watch out for that. They may give the impression that they want to sort out a marriage contract or even a prenuptial, even if there is no marriage contract, and it's just a free and easy partnership. And if the partner isn't willing to do that, that will be a massive turn off for them. Whatever the case, there's got to be some tit-for-tat arrangement, and otherwise they're not interested. And since they're great networkers, they have a massive social circle, they would keep up a flow of contact. It would be very easy for them to find someone else. Eros in Scorpio. Scorpio is the sign where interest in sex reaches its full maturity, even to the point of becoming obsessed. So Eros in Scorpio, or conjunct Pluto and to some extent Mars, goes deep into sex and love to the point of drowning in it. They love the arts of love, and so they can range from refined to extremely hardcore, adult-only kind of stuff, and concentrate on all the fetishes and kinks to do with sex. Eros here exerts a magnetic spell on others and that power comes with great responsibility, so as it can play out well, extremely well, or badly, depending on the consciousness level of the person. It has a plutonic effect, so that involves profound transformative processes where anything superficial is simply not tolerated, or it's consumed and transformed. This Eros here is a full-on mind, body, soul type of Eros. It's a water sign, so it has powers of imagination beyond the norm, and there's no problem visualizing the sexual exploits before hunting down their partners. I think this placement is more than likely to explore taboo areas of sex, kinks, and what some might consider perversions. Not necessarily, but it's an indication. Yet they can also be emotionally stable and committed too. They just don't like lovers who are free and easy, but only those who surrender totally, where their lovemaking is nothing less than intense. There's a flavor of Mars here, so sexual expression can be forceful and maybe have a caustic after effect. They can also sometimes appear cold, even when they're steaming with passion. So Eros in Scorpio drives can be animalistic, domineering, and unrepentant. But these traits, I think, often hide an acute emotional vulnerability. They can be hurt as much as anyone, but they tend never to show that, so the lovers have to play a guessing game or even be fearful that they've done something wrong. They could be prone to jealousy and projection of fears if they've not worked on their shadow side, and that might be harder to penetrate than most. But they don't regret their sexual exploits, but at the same time may never discuss them openly. Some affairs remain totally secret. If this Eros is betrayed, however, then expect dire revenge. And since they are psychic, they seem to have this inbuilt lie detector and can suss people's motives easily. Their interest in psychology is high, and that extends to behaviors in the bedroom. It can be hot stuff unless these unprocessed traits are integrated into the personality. They can be provoked into lashing out and hitting back hard, especially where they feel they've lost control of the partner. But definitely erotic intensity. It goes without saying that Eros here is a pure and authentic Eros. It's unfiltered through Venus. It's Eros emerging straight out of chaos and the night, so that's incredibly exciting. There may also be an interest in porn in more than usual obsessive ways to objectify the partner. This is where love also meets death. It's the eighth house. So I think lovemaking transforms both partners in some way, and it's extreme love or extreme hate. There's nothing in the middle here, and no false modesty either. And since it rules the genitals, they may also have no problem finding stimulation to fulfill their desires with innumerable conquests. But the sex, I think, must be carved deep in the soul and taken right to the edge, and it leaves its mark on any partner. Eros in Sagittarius, or conjunct Jupiter, I think brings the spirit of largesse and broad-mindedness into the arts of love. They may bring gifts to the lover and act in a very bountiful way, raising them up to a kind of spiritual level of honoring the other. They want love to be free and easy, though, with breeze in their hair. They have a lot of passion, though, due to the fiery nature of Sagittarius. And they can run headlong into a series of flings just to gain experience. They can be very tolerant of people's foibles, and don't tend to hold grudges. So a lover's tiff may be violent, but it would blow over straight away. But on the other hand, they can also be intolerant, even of sexual behaviors, if it doesn't fit their ideas or their philosophical mindset. If they're proselytizing their ideas and the partner doesn't agree, that could bring quite a bit of discord into the relationship. Or they can deny to themselves what they really want and act out while pretending it is all otherwise. What they seek, though, is a great quest or adventure through love, and they want to find the great spiritual and intellectual soulmate that is incredibly elusive in this life, but they keep seeking. So they may experience a bit of disappointment in that area. This Eros might run to doing sex outdoors or in unlikely places, in cars or on mountains or in fields, or just by trying out new athletic positions, just because the physical energy may be so high and they have the ability to do that, so they do it with gusto. They also have quite a bit of stamina for that extended romp in the bedroom or for marathon sessions without losing any luster. But they tend towards being philosophical about both sex and life in general, seeing it as a comedy tragedy. So that can bring out a little bit of religious conditioning and moralizing, and they could be judgmental of lovers or even of themselves too much, or even falsely inhibited for all the wrong reasons. They also love to have fun, though, and perhaps they are the ones most likely to crack a joke while they are making love, which could be a big turn off for other people. But they are looking for a serious alliance, and they will do anything for their loved one. But they can ride lovers a little bit like horses, so there's a bounciness to the energy, and woe betide anyone who can't keep up with them. Massaging their thighs or legs might be the route to arousal here, and a friendly no-nonsense directness about talking about sex, which could turn some on but turn others off. So Eros in Capricorn, or conjunct Saturn, is a bit harder to reach than most, as they guard their privacy under a respectable aura that could be surrounded by lots of rules and barriers. Eros here is ultra organized, so they may have a number of plans for their lovers and can only feel lustful when all the arrangements have been made that acknowledge their status and power, leading to them to have access to them. But behind closed doors, they can let rip and be as sensual as any other earth sign and indulge as much as Eros in Scorpio does. But the energy they put into lovemaking could be surprising and very welcome to their partners. But the tendency might be for these liaisons to include monetary arrangements or some kind of social mismatch. They might argue, that marriage is a monetary arrangement anyway, and have no problem with that. One approach of Eros in Capricorn might be to go cross-generation, where age difference is not an issue, as they find that older people are a turn-on, and as that lover can give a lot of wisdom, or the other way around, that the youthful person can offer a respite to the older person, and they can transform that through a younger lover. Venus in Capricorn traditionally confers this beautiful classic appearance long into old age. So I think Eros might have some of that as well. So their allure can be strong and difficult to pin down because of this classic nature to it. So they could be highly regarded as and attractive and desirable partners, just not so easy to get. Saturn also loves boundaries and bonds, so there might be a tendency to get into bondage, fetishes, ropes, chains, leather, and all of that. If that is a turn on to enhance the pleasures of lovemaking, or just that they will set rules and regulations and difficulties, conditions, preconditions about love before it can happen. It's a very conservative sign, so it could mean that they never even let that side of themselves ever be expressed or ever seen. So it could depend, but it's very earthy. It's a feminine sign and appears on the surface to be not at all like that. It's, more like concerned about business and status and achievement. So that's not a deliberate deception, but it's just careful about the preconditions. So don't be deceived. They can be hugely interested in sex and lovemaking more than it appears so. Also, this Eros could sprout up relationships in office situations or work parties where workaholism goes along with the sexaholism. It could also lead, but not always, into a fetish for work uniforms, military or police garb. But this would never be a chaotic liaison. It would be very controlled and measured, where the care is all shown in the planning, and it still could be incredibly rewarding for anyone involved. Which is ruled by Uranus, can come across as funky, breezy, loving the camaraderie of love, so the friendship that's involved as well. And it may seem that the feelings are not fully expressed through signs of affection. They might be a little bit distant or guarded, using their head rather than their heart. But what turns this Eros on may be the level of freedom agreed upon with the partner. So similar to Eros in Sagittarius, what keeps their interest may be in having access to a get-out clause and never being tied down to anyone. But they definitely don't like Klingons and love to be free and fully detached or even semi-detached. But all those arrangements have to be discussed beforehand. And as we saw, that quote by Germaine Greer said, it's the ones you let go who boomerang back. So there's no need to worry about keeping lovers. They will return if you give them freedom. And marriage can be like a prison, as she says. So that's what they want to avoid. They don't want to be locked in. So this represents an idealistic Eros. They have an idealistic view of love. But it can equally be experienced as pain of loss. So there could be difficulty with this as well. They just don't like to be hemmed in, and they come across as having a lot of choices and maybe more original than most. They might surprise their friends by dating outside the usual group, or there may be some kind of electricity about their physical appearance. They could at least appear to behave eccentrically, but actually be quite conservative and restrictive. They can surprise people in that way, as Saturn is also the ancient ruler of Aquarius. So that sometimes shows up as being rigidly attached to certain boundaries and regulations. Eros here, I think, treats love and sex as a kind of field of experimentation, so they're often looking for something different or original in others. You might explore all that is kinky while still being quite conventional yourself. Just be careful it's not cranky and suddenly your partners won't see you for dust. Sexual liaisons can start or end quickly as friendships, or here this Eros could but not always indulge in polyamorous, like multiple partners, or they would be more likely to fall in love with someone when they're matched, defending the same cause, or because of a political affiliation, or because of the group that they're involved with. And that the idea is then that the two of you can change the world together. Since Uranus rules electricity, there might be an awareness of the electromagnetic side of Kundalini energy as well, which rises in the spine at the midlife crisis. This Eros is likely to be the one that falls for someone in their immediate group, or out of it, but always through friendship, because friendship is important to them. So that might mean friends with benefits as well, which could be a practical solution for them, because they can still be semi-detached, or they'd be inclined to continuously use dating apps where all the features can be selected before dating. It doesn't mean this Eros can't commit. It just means that they can be very fixed in their ways and a little bit difficult to pin down, as they want to protect their independence first and foremost. So finally we come to Eros in Pisces, and that also means conjunct Neptune. And this Eros loves to raise love up to the highest heights, and placing it firmly in sacred territory, where each enactment of love is a dialogue with the divine gods. And a love affair can lead to personal, even mystical union and ecstasy, either with their lover's knowledge or even in spite of them. So this Eros is dreamy, poetical, spiritual. They can be so charitable and make sacrifices that perhaps they shouldn't make, though, as it is ruled by this boundlessness of Neptune, this boundaryless Neptune. So the interest in love may be earthy at first, but it will always have this higher octave element and seek out the twin flame and be very romantic in that way. And that takes people beyond this clumsy physical realm. They're intuitive about feelings and naturally tune into the partner. So the word that comes to my mind is exalted, as Venus is exalted in this sign. So erotic love can be exalted to the highest and turned into some sacred act. It could even have a religious feel to it, as they love to use ritual embellishments like aromas, foodstuffs, feathers, bells, wind chimes and colours, all accompanied by deep breathing, which can extend the physical arousal and imbue it with spiritual energy. So here we have all the trappings of Tantra, and even, I think, Dionysian or orgiastic energies. So this Eros will gaze into the eyes of the beloved to sense the energy between them that you can't, that isn't always tangible. It's like the fusion of souls, which poets talk about, where the two become one and the boundaries vanish. So that can feel amazing, but also leave a kind of scorched earth in its trail. They can be so giving, even to the point of their own ruin. Sharing resources too much, even though they're sensitive and romantic, it could lead to heightening the high through drugs, and they can be inclined to go too far, where their love knows few limits, and that might lead to addictions or even depression and their own ruin, because they're seeking an unconditional type of love, which isn't easy to find in this world. And if the partner isn't up for that, then they would suffer incredible disappointment, leading to problems. So they may be familiar with this idea of pothos, of longing, and that is more like the unrequited type of love. So they might fall in love with the wrong person or someone unobtainable. And this Eros can create mysteries and confusions about what is real and what's not. So they can be prone to delusions about the loved one, or even suffer self-delusions themselves. At the highest and best, they're reaching for this impossible soul connection. So if that happens, then that's wonderful. But it can also lead to disappointments and disillusionment. There may also be, not always, but a shoe or foot fetish, as this Eros in Pisces is associated with the feet. So that body part could be a turn-on, or they have a penchant for dancers. As is well known, feet size in classic fairy tales allude to the erotic symbol there. It's symbolic of that. And so that's something to consider. And this Eros may also have dreams they share with the partner that become prophetic, or they can immerse themselves so deeply in music, art, and poetry that the expressions themselves become the substitute for actual love. But if they can sublimate, then that could be the best outlet for them if they can't find the real thing. So thanks for listening. That's the end of part 2. Look out for part 3, which is Eros with all the planets. Thanks again.